If you have not already done so, during your journey as a Forex trader, you will inevitably come across a social media page, Facebook advertisement, YouTube video, article, company, or individual who claims to have a system that allows them to generate, X number of pips per day or X amount of dollars per week. And alarm bells should instantly ring in your head if or whenever you see this. Firstly, a consistent fixed daily return is highly improbable given the nature of random distribution in probability-based business models such as trading. Now, I'm yet to meet a single trader who came even close to making a fixed net profit every day over a significant time period. Shouting about daily profits is usually just a marketing ploy targeted at the uneducated masses. Secondly, I'm also yet to meet a professional trader who actually refers to their profits in pips. Now, while measuring pips, it is indeed an essential component of the risk management process. Shouting about your profits and losses in pips is often the trademark of a rookie, or worse, a scam artist preying on the naive or the uneducated. Now, let me explain why. Well, there are basically four sort of general ways that you can quote your profit and loss performance on your trading account or a specific trade. The first is probably the simplest, which is just saying how much money you made or lost in absolute terms. So, I'm saying I lost £500 or $500, whatever. The second is how many total pips that you returned. The third is the percentage that you have returned based on your total account balance. And the final method is to calculate your P&L in terms of R, which essentially is your reward to risk ratio. Now, the first two methods are, in my humble opinion, probably the most irrelevant and misleading terms to report your P&L in. Why? Well, because neither of them have any bearing on the actual risk that was taken to generate that return. So it kind of gives you zero indication of the trader's actual skill set. Because let's say we have two traders, right? And they both make £10,000 profit in that week. Which one is the better trader? Or did they have an equal performance? Well, we don't really know because absolute monetary figures, they don't tell you anything useful about a trader's true skill set. We need a little bit more information to give us an idea about the risk that they took to return that £10,000, right? So the most common way is usually method 3, to refer to trading returns as a percentage of the total account balance, which is calculated with this simple formula. So it's the total profit that you returned, and then you divide that by your total account balance, and then you multiply that figure by 100, which then gives you the figure as a percentage. So in the example above of the two traders, trader A has a £50,000 account. So this means that £10,000 profit is then equal to a 20% return, because £10,000 profit is 20% of the 50 grand balance, right? But the second trader, they actually have a £1 million account. So that means that their same £10,000 profit, that's actually only a 1% return on capital. So this is one reason why people, shouting about their profits in just absolute monetary figures, right, with no other information, it's just a bit ridiculous in my opinion. And, to be fair, it's only usually done by those who just are trying to attract attention from the wrong people for the wrong reasons. Now, the second core method that you'll often see newbie traders or those scammers use to refer to their profits in are just pips. But let's take a more visual example to see how this is just as pointless and misleading, really. So let's say that you take two trades. In the first trade, you have a 20 pip stop loss and you have a 100 pip profit target. This means that if you lose the trade, you obviously lose 20 pips, but if you win the trade, then you can bank 100 pips profit. So therefore, you have a reward to risk ratio of 5-1, as 100 pips is obviously 5 times as big as your 20 pip stop loss. Now, in the second trade, this time you risk 150 pips in order to try to make 300 pips. So this means you have a much smaller reward to risk ratio of only 2-1 because your profit target is only 2 times as big as your stop loss risk. So let's say your account size is £10,000 and you have pretty disciplined risk management rules. So you only risk 1% of your account on each trade that you take. So in this case, 1% of 10,000 is £100. So therefore you risk £100 on each trade. So let's look at two different scenarios. Now in scenario A, you win the first trade, but you lose the second trade. So let's calculate how many total pips that you make in this first scenario. So as you win the first trade and price hits your profit target, that means you bank 100 pips, right? But because you lose a second trade and price hits your stop loss for a minus 150 pip loss, this means that across the two trades, you are now down a net total of minus 50 pips. But how much percentage of your account balance did you actually win or lose? So remember, the risk per trade is 1% of your account size, so £100 per trade. So as the first trade is a winner, and it has a reward to risk ratio of 5-1, this means that you banked 5 times the amount that you risked. So you made a £500 profit on this trade, which is a 5% return. Now the second trade was a loss, so you just lose the 1% that you risked, which is a £100 loss. So across the two trades, the £500 profit on the first trade minus the £100 loss on the second means that you actually made a net profit of £400, which is a 4% return on your £10,000 account, right? Now, in the second scenario, in scenario B, this time you lose the first trade, but you win the second. So how many total pips do you win or lose? In the first trade, your price hits your stop loss and you lose 20 pips. You win the second trade and price hits your profit target and you bank a massive 300 pips. So therefore, 300 pips minus your 20 pip loss is a really nice 280 pips net profit. But how does this translate into actual money then? Well, the first trade is a loser, so you lose 1% of your account, which is a £100 loss. The second trade is a winner. It has a 2-1 reward to risk, because remember, you're risking 150 pips to just make 300 pips. So that means you only make 2% of your account, which is a £200 profit. And then when you subtract the £100 loss in the first trade from your £200 profit in the second trade, you obviously make a net £100 profit, which is a 1% net return across both trades. Now, what do you notice here between those two scenarios? Because in scenario B, you made a massive 280 pip net profit and you banked £100, which is a 1% return on your account. But in scenario A, you actually lost 50 pips in total, right? You're down minus 50 pips, but you made a net profit of 4%, a profit of £400, right? When you compare that to scenario B, where you'd made those 280 pips profit, but you only returned £100. So what metric do you think more accurately reflects the true skill of a trader? The amount of pips that you make or the percentage on your account that you return? Quite clearly the percentage, right? So this is why when someone who's talking about or showing off their pip count, they're really just shouting about completely meaningless statistics. So we've now looked at the first 3 core methods of reporting our P&L, and we can clearly see that quoting your P&L as a percentage return on your account balance is obviously a much more useful figure than just pips or absolute monetary amounts. However, there are still drawbacks to just looking at percentage return on its own, and that is mainly because it doesn't fully tell you the risk that was used to actually generate that return. Because if you always risk 1% per trade, right, no matter what, then the total percentage return will make sense. But some people risk 0.5% per trade, 0.25% per trade, 2% per trade. Some people will vary their risk between different trades, between different setups and strategies. So in those cases, just quoting the total percentage return on your account, it won't tell you the full story of the reward to risk behind that return. So this is where the fourth method, R, becomes extremely useful because it gives us a much more accurate reflection of that balance between risk and reward. So R removes the monetary risk and it just focuses on the pip risk to reward ratio. So rather than focusing on how much money was made or how much percentage was made, it removes those from the equation because both of those can be affected by what lot size that the trader decided to put on. So the volume that they put on their trades, right? So again, R removes the monetary risk and it just focuses on the pip risk, which can be extremely useful. So let me show you why. So if you have 2 traders, A and trader B, let's say they both return a 100 pip profit. And let's say that this both equates to a 10% profit for traders on their accounts. So at this point, we don't really know anything about what risk was used to generate those returns. And this is where R comes in. So let's look at each trade that they took. Trader A risked 20 pips to make 100 pips, so they have a 5-1 reward to risk ratio. And that's all R is really. It's a plus 5R return. It's your reward to risk ratio, but just stated as a single digit, right? Now, trader B, on the other hand, they risk 50 pips to make the same 100 pips as trader A. So they have a much lower reward to risk ratio of 2 to 1. So their R is just 2. So again, the reason why this metric is useful is because we can now see that although they both returned the same percentage and they both returned the same number of pips on each of their trades, right? They both had 100 pips profit. They both returned 10% on their account balance. Trader A actually risked 2% to make that 10%, right? Because they had a 5R trade. But trader B had to risk more than double that. They had to risk 5% to make that same return of 10% because they only had an R of 2, right? It was a 2R trade. So R is a really good metric for a number of reasons. And I think out of all of the 4 core methods for reporting profit and loss, it's probably the most important because we are risk managers at the end of the day. And if you want to move into the professional side of trading, then risk management is all that matters. It's all about what risk you expose yourself to make that reward. Because that is how you keep the numbers on your side for the rest of the career. That is how you achieve longevity in this industry. So focus on and build the skill to make your R number as high as possible. And then the monetary amounts that will go behind that R for you, right? That will come as you prove yourself worthy to handle larger and larger amounts of capital. R is what investors care about.